discovering I was declared dead for 2 years. The heartwarming truth that changed my life forever. Jake sat in his dimly lit living room, the winter winds howling outside, sending shivers through the drafty old house. His heart raced as he opened the envelope that had arrived that cold morning. The words stared back at him like a cold slap. He was declared dead by the Social Security office for 2 whole years. Shock mixed with disbelief as memories of his family, his wife, and kids flashed through his mind like a montage of joy and struggle. How could this happen? The weight of his father's silent suffering, a proud soldier now lost to the scars of war, hung heavier than ever. As he unfolded the letter, Jake could almost hear the laughter of his children fading, like echoes in a valley. Winter had blanketed their small town in silence, but inside him a storm raged. He thought of his bills mounting like snow drifts against the porch. How could they survive this? With every line in the letter, anguish twisted in his chest. The thought of his family, believing him gone for 2 years, tore at him. How could his wife, Sarah, ever trust the world again? Just last week, he had fixed old Ms. Wilkins' car, sharing stories over steaming mugs of coffee while the engine purred back to life. That connection, those moments of shared humanity, they reminded him of the warmth and light amidst biting cold. Yet now, faced with the suffocating truth that he was officially dead, the chill crept deeper into his bones. As he took a deep breath, Jake thought about his father. The man had always been the rock of their family, yet now he seemed consumed by a bitterness that crackled in the air like static. They hadn't spoken much since his father returned home from the war, his mind a battlefield of its own. As Jake wrestled with his newfound identity crisis, his father's resentments bubbled over. The air between them thickened with unspoken blame, pushing Jake further into isolation. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As rumors of a situation spread through the town, kindness mixed uneasily with judgment. The colder the winds blew, the sharper the whispers became. But even as misunderstandings fueled tension, there were glimmers of solidarity. Neighbors offered casseroles left at the door, while others shared awkward smiles, each navigating their own struggles. Jake felt the weight of their compassion, yet battled a core loneliness as he navigated these shifting tides. Determined not to be just a phantom in his own life, Jake finally faced the institution responsible for his fate. His heart raced as he stood in line at the government office, a feeling of righteous anger bubbling within. With every form filled and word exchanged, he peeled back layers of bureaucratic apathy. He knew there was more at stake than just his name on a piece of paper. This fight was for every neighbor who felt neglected and trapped by an uncaring system. As the snow continued to fall outside, Jake caught a glimpse of hope flickering in the hearts of his family. The struggle to reclaim his life was only just beginning, but deep down, underneath the layers of snow, both inside and out, he sensed a thaw, a chance to rebuild the relationships that meant everything to him. Would Jake be able to mend the fractures in his family and emerge from the cold shadows of the past? Or would the icy grip of misunderstanding seal their fate forever? Jake couldn't shake the feeling of panic as he left the government office. The ink had dried on their forms, but the enormity of his situation was just beginning to settle in. The realization that he was, in fact, alive but legally non-existent felt like a cruel joke. His heart ached for Sarah and the kids. What if they'd moved on, convinced that he was truly gone? He stepped into the cold air outside, the wind biting at his face. His breath formed clouds before him, ephemeral reminders of a life he wasn't sure still belonged to him. Each step towards home felt like a march through quicksand. The weight of uncertainty clung to him like the heavy coat he wore, pressing down with every heartbeat as he reached their house. The familiar sight stirred a mixture of longing and sorrow. The warm glow of the lamp in the window felt like a beacon. He paused, taking a moment to collect himself before walking through the door. Would Sarah embrace him, or would she be too scared, too broken, to accept him back? The thought made his stomach twist. With a deep breath, Jake opened the door. The soft scent of dinner wafted through the air, teasing at his senses, but it was laced with an underlying tension. Sarah stood at the kitchen counter, her back to him, preparing a meal as if her routine could shield her from the truth. When she turned and saw him, the world seemed to pause. Her eyes widened in disbelief, as if she were seeing a ghost rather than the living, breathing man she thought she'd lost. "Jake?" she breathed, uncertainty threading through the single word. For a moment, he could only nod. He could see the flicker of hope and fear dance across her face, battling for dominance. He stepped closer, hands trembling as he fought back tears. "It's really me," he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. She dropped the spoon, the clatter reverberating through the stillness. How? How is this possible?" The raw edge of her confusion cut through him. It felt like an avalanche tumbling down a mountainside, powerful and unstoppable. "I don't know," Jake said, urgency in his voice. "It's a long story. I was declared dead." Her expression shifted, a mix of hurt and disbelief. "Declared dead?" The words fell from her lips like pebbles, each one a reminder of the loss and pain she had felt over the last 2 years. "I had no idea. I've been fighting to fix it. To come home," he continued, taking a step closer, yearning for contact, hoping for a sign that the connection they once shared remained intact. Emotions swirled in the room, and just as he thought she might reach out to him, Sarah turned away, her hands pressed against the countertop. "You know what we've gone through, Jake. The nights I spent alone, the kids they thought you had left us." Her voice quivered, the pain cracking through veils of anger. Jake's heart twisted. Every word she said landed like a heavy blow, and guilt washed over him. "I never left you not by choice." The tension melted slowly as they stood in silence, caught in the weight of each other's grief. Then, the soft patter of little feet echoed from the stairs, breaking the solemnity. His youngest, Mia, appeared, her big eyes wide with innocence. Seeing her felt like a gasp of fresh air, but the mix of joy and sorrow surged through him. "What's wrong, Mommy?" Mia asked, looking between her parents. Jake felt an ache deep inside him, realizing how much he had missed during the last 2 years. "Nothing is wrong, sweet girl," he replied, kneeling to her level. "I'm home." Her uncertain smile briefly illuminated the dark shadows that had settled in their home. But Jake could just feel the enormity of the adjustments ahead, the search for forgiveness and understanding that lay in the distance. As the house became a puzzle of broken pieces and shadowed memories, Jake knew he had to mend the shattered trust with his family. Would they allow him into their lives again? Or would the scars of absence and misunderstanding keep them at arm's length? The silence stretched as Mia looked from him to Sarah, waiting for answers that hung heavily in the air. The future loomed like an open door, fragile yet full of promise. But what awaited him on the other side? Jake knelt there, his heart racing as he looked into Mia's earnest eyes. The innocence reflected back at him was a bittersweet dagger, cutting through the frayed threads of his resolve. He desperately wanted to wrap her in his arms, to feel her warmth, and to assure her that everything would be all right. But standing there, he felt like he was straddling 2 worlds, the past he lost and the future he hoped to regain. "Daddy?" Mia's small voice pulled him from his thoughts. The way she said it, filled with wonder, sent a wave of emotion flooding through him. "Yeah, baby, it's me," Jake choked out, fighting against the tightening in his throat. He reached out, his fingers brushing against her soft cheek. A spark of connection surged, a reminder of the bond that had never truly faded. "Can I give you a hug?" Mia asked, and without waiting for an answer, she propelled herself into his arms. Jake gasped at the sheer joy and sorrow that crashed into him all at once. He could feel her small body shaking, not from fear but from the excitement of having her dad home again. Sarah stood frozen at the countertop, a mixture of emotions dancing across her face. Fear clashed with the openness of a heart still teetering on the edge of hope. Watching them, she felt a fresh wave of emotions swell inside her, a storm of love, anger, and fear battling it out within her. "Mia, sweetie, can you go?" Sarah started, her voice trailing off as she wrestled with the words. "Can you go watch your show for a bit?" Mia pulled back, looking up at her mom with wide eyes. "But, Mommy, Daddy just got here." Jake watched, desperate to explain, and yet terrified of the truth. "Sarah, please, let her stay," he said, his voice breaking as he tried to connect the fragile threads of their family. "Jake, she deserves to know what's really happening." Sarah's voice was firm, yet trembling. Jake nodded, almost imperceptibly, acutely aware of the weight of every word. The past 2 years had carved deep channels of hurt, but they sat together now, teetering on a precipice of opportunity. "Mommy, are we all going to be together again?" Mia's question hung in the air, innocent and poignant. Tears glistened in Sarah's eyes, and Jake could see the wall she had built beginning to crack under the pressure of truth. He held Mia tighter, knowing this moment was pivotal. "We'll figure it out, I promise." "Together." Sarah's breath hitched. "Together?" she echoed, each syllable laced with doubt. "Yes, together. I know I can't erase the pain I caused, the years that slipped away, but I'm here now. I want to make things right." Jake turned towards Sarah, his heart pounding at the chance for reconciliation. "I want us to heal, if you'll let me." Silence engulfed the room again, heavy and pulsing. Mia's small fingers traced the outline of her father's face, attempting to bridge the gap she couldn't understand. "Jake, it's not that simple," Sarah finally replied, emotions spilling over like an open dam. "You vanished, and I had to raise our kids thinking you abandoned us. I know, and it kills me. But I didn't choose this. I was fighting to come back to you." Jake saw the flicker of understanding in her eyes, but hurt still painted her features. "What if you disappear again?" Sarah whispered, her voice cracking. "Then let us make it impossible," he replied, desperation kicking through his words. "Let us start again. Show me how to be part of this life again." Mia beamed at her parents, unaware of the shadows dancing around them. They both looked at her, their hearts heavy with the unspoken weight of the journey ahead. "Just promise me one thing." Sarah's voice shook softly, the vulnerability stark against her steely exterior. "Don't leave again." "I promise," Jake swore, sealing the pact not just with words, but with the earnestness in his heart. As the fragile thread of hope began to form, the path ahead remained uncertain. The weight of their grief was still there, heavy and looming like a storm cloud. But as the first rays of understanding broke through, Jake couldn't help but imagine a new beginning. What would it take to rebuild? Their family? Would every shared moment pull them closer, or would it only bring more pain? The echoes of the past whispered doubts in his ears, and the future's brightness flickered just out of grasp. With each shared glance, Jake knew that he had to dig deeper, face the scars left behind, and perhaps uncover the unexpected truths that would reshape their future. Could they truly find healing, or was this only the beginning of a much more complicated journey? Jake felt the warmth of Mia's tiny body melt into him, her trust a soothing balm over the wounds of their past. As he hugged her tighter, he could feel hope flickering between them, fragile as a candle flame, but vibrant nonetheless. In that moment, everything felt possible. "Mia, would you like to show me your room?" Jake asked, trying to redirect the moment towards something lighter. "Yeah, I have so much to show you." Her enthusiasm lit up her features like the sun breaking through clouds. She tugged at his hand, pulling him toward the hallway, her laughter echoing softly in the stillness of their home. Sarah watched them go, her heart a tumult of conflicting emotions. She wanted to be happy, to feel the joy radiating from Mia, but the shadows of their past loomed heavily in her mind. As she followed them into the living room, she reminded herself to breathe. Suddenly, the weight of the world seemed to settle back on her shoulders. "Jake," she called softly, stepping forward as he crouched beside Mia, as toys scattered across the floor. Yeah? He looked up, a smile still lingering on his lips, the innocence of Mia's world momentarily shielding him from the gravity of reality. Can we talk? The smile slipped from his face as he nodded. Sure, just give me a minute. He glanced at Mia. Why don't you choose a few toys to show Mommy? I'll be right back. Mia nodded excitedly, digging through her toys as Jake stood to join Sarah. He felt the nerves tingling in his fingers. This wasn't tea, just a conversation. It was a reckoning. Jake, she breathed, her voice lowering as the weight of their history hung heavy between them. I'm trying to trust you, but it's so hard. You can't just walk back in after disappearing for 2 years and expect everything to be perfect. I know, he replied, his throat dry. I don't expect perfection. He paused, searching for the right words. I want to be part of your lives again. I know I messed up. I didn't mean to leave you all like that. I didn't want it to end like this. But it did end that way. Sarah burst, her voice almost a whisper, yet laden with the intensity of her hurt. And now I have Mia asking questions. Answers I'm not sure how to give her. What do I tell her? That her dad left us behind? Jake ran a hand through his hair, frustration mixing with desperation. You can tell her the truth. That I love her. That I'm back. I need to earn the right to be her dad again. Please, trust me to take small steps. Trust? That's a tall order after everything. Her blue eyes shimmered with unshed tears. You're asking me to hand you a chance to break our hearts again. I'm asking for a chance to change, he insisted, shaking slightly with the weight of his plea. I'm here. I'm not that person who disappeared. I'm trying to be better, not just for myself, but for you. For Mia. I've had 2 years to reflect on everything, and I want a future. Together. I just need time. Unseen by both of them, Mia picked up a stuffed dinosaur, waving it in the air as if it could bind them together again. Look, Daddy. It's Dino. He likes you already. The moment was a bomb, a burst of innocence that pierced through their tangled emotions. Jake couldn't help but grin at Mia's enthusiasm. Dino, huh? What is his superpower? Making my daddy smile, Mia exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. Then let us make sure he helps me smile a lot, Jake said. He felt something shift inside him, the gravity of his choices and their consequences morphing, even if just a little. Mommy, can Dino come on our adventure? She chirped, turning her gaze to Sarah, who found herself smiling despite the heaviness in her heart. Of course, Sarah managed, her voice cracking slightly. She wanted to feel the joy in Mia's words, but the ache of uncertainty loomed just beneath the surface as Jake joined them again. The air was thick with hopeful tension. Would it be enough? Could they navigate the maze of old hurts and new beginnings? Sarah took the frantic breath of courage. Let's try, but we all need to be honest. No more secrets. Jake nodded, the promise hanging between them. Fragile, yet uplifting. The road would be long and winding, littered with reminders of a painful past and the challenges of an uncertain future. But as he looked into Sarah's eyes, filled with sparkling emotions and unease, he couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, they were standing at the threshold of something beautiful, ready to reshape their story. Would this new beginning unite them, or would the shadows of the past prove too daunting to conquer? Mia jumped up and down, clutching Dino to her chest like he held the magic that could fix everything. The tension in the room hung like a storm cloud, but Jake could see a flicker of hope start to break through. Okay, Mia, he said, kneeling beside her. What adventure do you have in mind? We can go to the living room and create a dinosaur land. She cheered, her small finger pointing into the distance with the exuberance only a child could muster. Sounds like a plan, Jake replied, feeling lighter as he rose to his feet. He tried to shake off the heaviness of the conversation with Sarah. Right now, he wanted to focus on this little spark of joy in him as they moved into the living room. Jake couldn't help but steal glances at Sarah. She was watching them, a mixture of worry and something softer reflected in her features. He wanted to reach out, to ease her worries, but he also knew that healing wouldn't come overnight. Mia dropped onto the carpet, scattering her toys all around and starting to construct her imaginary world. Look, Daddy, this is where Dino lives. And over here is the big mountain. Jake knelt beside her, swept up in the magic of her imagination. What if Dino has to save all the other dinosaurs from a giant storm? He suggested, and Mia's eyes grew wide as she excitedly nodded. The world outside faded as they built mountains of blocks and valleys filled with soft animals. For a brief moment, it felt like old times before everything fell apart. Jake found himself laughing, truly laughing for the first time in what felt like ages. To his surprise, Sarah moved closer, her arms crossed but tense, watching quietly. Maybe this was a chance for her to see him as he was now. Mia, who is the ruler of Dinosaur Land? Sarah asked, her voice light as she entered their little play zone. Mia didn't skip a beat. Dino is the king. Sarah smiled softly. A mighty king, I see. Does he protect the kingdom from bad storms? Yes. Mia twinkled, and then she looked up, her innocent gaze bouncing between her parents. Can we all be a team? Mommy, you too. Dino needs a queen. Jake felt the warmth spread through him. The image of the three of them together in a playful adventure tugged at the corners of his heart. But Sarah sighed, her smile wavering as reality washed back over her. Mia, sweetie, life isn't just pretending. We need to work on things, okay? Mia's face fell slightly, but she quickly picked up Dino, turning his plush snout towards Sarah. But Dino believes we can do it. We can work together. Jake exchanged a look with Sarah, drawn into the depth of their own uncertainties. Maybe that's the lesson here, he murmured. If a little dinosaur can believe in teamwork, can't we try to? Sarah held his gaze, the walls around her cracking just a bit. It's not that simple, Jake. But it can be, he pressed gently, lowering his voice. You and I, we both want what's best for Mia. Silence hung heavy as Mia continued to play, ignoring the weight of the world swirling around her. She announced imaginary dangers and victories as if they were the only truths that mattered. I want to believe, Sarah said, her voice finally full of softness that cut through the tension. But belief demands trust, and trust is earned. Jake felt a twinge of fear. Could he prove that he was worthy? Let's start with small steps, he suggested. Every day is a chance to show we're in this together. Every day, Sarah echoed, hope flickering again in her eyes. Every day, he thought. Could he carry that weight? Just then, something outside caught his attention, a faint noise. Nothing but a shadow at the edge of the window. A gust of wind rustled the trees, and he felt an uneasy chill. What was that? He asked, turning toward the window. I don't know, Mia said, her playful tone shifting to curiosity, her little brows furrowing, echoing the tension in the room. Could be the T-Rex? She added, her eyes brimming with wide-eyed wonder. Jake stood up, suddenly alert, heart racing. Let us investigate. As they all moved toward the window, Sarah's hand brushed against Jake's arm. Would they have the courage to face what lay ahead together? But the moment they looked outside, everything changed again, and Jake faced a truth he never expected. Who were they? Sarah stammered, pointing to the figures approaching their front porch, and Jake felt his heart plunge. The shadows of the past aren't done with them yet. Jake hesitated at the window, the familiar chill creeping up his spine. The figures outside were vague at first, just dark silhouettes against the fading light. But as they stepped closer, details emerged, familiar faces that twisted his gut with a mix of disbelief and dread. What is happening? Mia asked, concern etching into her innocent features as Jake's breath caught in his throat. Just wait a second. Honey, he murmured, trying to sound calm even as the turmoil swirled within him. Jake, Sarah whispered, the worry in her voice palpable. Is that? He nodded slowly, his heart thudding heavily. It looks like they came for us. The silence in the room felt like a weight pressing down. Memories flooded back to Jake of choices, arguments, and the hollow feeling of self-doubt. As the shadows drew nearer, he looked at Sarah, her eyes wide and frightened. What do we do? She asked, her voice quivering. Before he could answer, the front door creaked open. A gust of cold air rushed in, and in stepped a couple, their expressions tight with unresolved pain. The man's jaw was set, while the woman's eyes glistened with unshed tears. It didn't take Jake a moment to realize who they were. Sarah's parents, returning after months of silence and uncertainty. Mia, the woman, spoke, her voice breaking as she knelt down, extending her arms toward their daughter. Grandma? Mia took a tentative step forward, her little hands clutching Dino tightly. Sweetheart, it's so good to see you, Sarah's mother said, her voice thick with emotion. We've missed you so much. As Mia ran in her grandmother's embrace, Jake felt his heart wrench. They had spent so long in limbo, battling with their own darkness while also trying to protect Mia from it. But there was no denying the stark reality of this moment, the awkwardness of the familiar strangers standing in his living room, as hopeful yet uncertain as he felt. The air became thick with unspoken words, glances exchanged, defenses rising. Jake, Sarah's father began, his tone unclear but serious. We need to talk. There are things you don't know. Jake's throat tightened. He could almost hear the echoes of the past playing in his mind, misunderstandings, blame, guilt. Like what? He asked, voice strained. About your situation, the man replied, hesitant but firm. Things have changed since you left. Jake caught Sarah's gaze, and in it, he saw the flicker of panic. The walls that they were carefully reconstructing were now teetering on the edge of collapse. What do you mean? Jake pressed, feeling sick with dread. Just sit down, please. The request from Sarah's mother was gentle, but Jake couldn't shake the looming fear. What were they about to uncover? Mia, oblivious to the tension brewing around her, giggled as she played with Dino, her laughter slicing through the thick atmosphere. As they settled onto the couch, Jake couldn't shake off the rush of memories mingling with exhaustion. He had fought hard for his family, but this was a whole different kind of battle. I can't believe you're here, Jake started, but the words felt weighty, inadequate. After everything, Sarah's dad looked directly at him, intensity shining through. You need to understand you were declared dead for 2 years. Jake's breath slammed back into his chest. He hadn't imagined this. The air vanished from the conversation, leaving only confusion twisting inside. What do you mean? He asked, barely above a whisper. The ground felt unsteady beneath his feet. Let us explain, Sarah's mother said softly, reaching for her husband's hand. Their faces were drawn, haunted by their ordeal. As they began to recount the story, Jake realized this was not just a family reunion, it was a reckoning. A splash of cold water against the burning weight of unfulfilled hopes. What would this revelation mean for them? For Mia? For all the hope they were trying to build once again? But just as the wave of words began washing over him, a sharp knock at the door interrupted, louder this time, more insistent than before. Who could that be? Sarah murmured, voice trembling again. Jake felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. The evening had already cracked open so many secrets. Who else was waiting outside, ready to step through that threshold? I don't know, Jake replied cautiously, his heart racing faster. And with that uncertainty hanging heavy in the room, he wondered were they prepared for whatever awaited them beyond the door. The knock reverberated in Jake's ears like the tolling of a distant bell, each sound echoing a warning that something was about to change. The room fell still, and he could almost hear the anxious drumbeat of his heart. As he stood there, frozen, he cast a glance at Mia, who was still wrapped in her grandmother's arms, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around them. Go see who it is, Sarah urged, breaking the heavy silence. Her voice quivered, revealing the knot of anxiety tightening in her gut. Jake nodded, reluctant but sensing the urgency. He walked toward the door, each step heavier than the last. What awaited him on the other side? Who would be standing there? And would they bring more chaos into their lives? He reached for the doorknob, taking in a shaky breath. With a swift turn, he opened the door to find a familiar face, one that sent a jolt of surprise through his already frayed nerves. It was Mike, his former partner from the police department. An out-of-breath, haunted expression etched into his features made Jake's stomach drop. Mike? Jake's voice was tight, caught between shock and instinctual worry. What are you doing here? Jake, we need to talk. Now. Mike's eyes darted behind him, scanning the room before meeting Jake's gaze again. It's about your case. Case. Jake echoed, confused. The words felt like a fog swirling in his mind, mixed with a whirlwind of emotions crashing around him. Mia glanced over his shoulder, her small voice cutting through the tension. Daddy, can we play? Not right now, sweetheart, he replied. Tried to smile for her, but feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. He stepped aside, motioning for Mike to come in. Just come in. As the door closed behind them, Jake felt a shiver of apprehension. He ushered Mike to the living room, where Sarah's parents still sat, their faces filled with confusion. The atmosphere shifted, charged with suspicion and anxiety. What's going on? Sarah asked, her tone edgier than before, as Mike took a seat, clearly flustered. There are things about your accident, Jake. Mike hesitated, visibly wrestling with how to continue. Things we thought were done, things that aren't settled. Jake's heart sank even lower. What now? It felt like a rug was being pulled out from under him all over again. What are you saying? Whatever you think you know, it's not the full story. There are people searching for you. They believe you know something important. Jake exchanged a glance with Sarah, who now looked as bewildered as he felt. The world outside suddenly seemed more threatening than ever. What do you mean people are searching for me? His voice rose, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. I was gone. I'm right here. Mike's face hardened, and he glanced around the room again as if expecting someone to appear inside the walls. They think you're involved in something much bigger than we realized. They're not just going to let you walk away. The room chilled at his words. Jake could feel as if the shadows of his past loomed closer, tightening their grips on him and his family. Mia's laughter faded into the background, a distant memory tucked in with all the warmth and normalcy that felt increasingly out of reach. Jake, Sarah's mother interjected softly, her voice breaking the strain. Is there something you haven't told us? It felt like a trap closing in. The weight of this newfound knowledge creeped closer, inviting fear to mingle with confusion. I don't know. Jake's voice wavered, the sharp edges of panic beginning to cut through his mind. Just then, a sudden sound interrupted the thickening tension, a low rumble in the distance, like thunder approaching fast on the horizon. What was that? Jake asked, scanning the room with wary eyes. Mike stood quickly, urgency etched on his face. We need to get everyone out of here. Jake's heart raced. The reality of the situation crashed in on him. No longer was it just about reconciling his past and approaching his family. Now, they might have to run. As he glanced at Sarah, then at Mia, clinging innocently to her grandmother, he realized the stakes were higher than he ever imagined. Run? From who? I'll explain later, Mike replied tersely. The urgency in his tone was chilling. Jake could feel his heart pounding harder, fear clenching his throat. What were they in for? What truth awaited them just after that stormy knock on the door? Let us go. Mike pressed, moving toward the door. Jake took a deep breath, preparing for whatever might come next. But before he could step forward, another loud knock echoed through the house, louder than the first, and this time, the doorframe shuddered beneath the intensity. With every muscle in his body tense, he looked at Sarah. Who is out there? She whispered, the fear evident in her eyes. He didn't have an answer, but part of him knew that when he opened that door, there would be no turning back. What would be waiting outside would change everything once again. Would they be ready to face it? Jake's heart was pounding like a drum, each beat echoing the urgency of the moment. He looked between Mike and Sarah, conflicted. Every instinct told him to face whatever was on the other side of that door, but parental instincts gripped him tighter. He needed to protect Mia. Stay close, he whispered to Sarah, squeezing her hand for reassurance. He stepped toward the door again, taking in a shaky breath. The second knock came louder, more insistent. The house felt alive with a tension he couldn't shake. He grasped the doorknob and hesitated for a heartbeat, then pulled it open. Bracing himself and fully prepared for anything on the threshold stood a shadowy figure, their features obscured by the dim light of the evening. Jake instinctively took a step back, instinct screaming at him. The figure moved, stepping into the light, revealing a strikingly familiar face that left him breathless. Jake, it's me, Ava. Ava, his long-lost sister. He had spent sleepless nights replaying memories of her laughter, wondering if she'd ever be part of his life again. But the smile that stretched across her face quickly faltered as she took in the scene. Jake, we don't have time. They're looking for you. Who? Jake demanded, anger rippling beneath his confusion. What is going on? Mike continued to guard the door with a steely resolve, eyes darting outside, as if sensing invisible danger creeping closer. Ava stepped forward, urgency fueling her words. I just escaped from a place where they were trying to find you. I thought you were dead. I found out they were tracking people connected to you. The police called it off when you vanished, but her voice trembled. They've now started looking again. It's worse than you can imagine. Every word wrapped around Jake's mind like heavy chains, pulling him deeper into disorientation and fear. He looked back at Sarah, the weight of the unknown crashing down on him. What do you mean people connected to me? I'll explain everything later, Ava insisted, pulling him toward the door. No more time for talking. We need to go. Wait, Jake shouted, holding up a hand, his heart racing. If they're coming for me, we need to protect Mia and Mom, everyone. Then we need to split up, Mike suggested quickly. Ava, Jake, you take Sarah and Mia. I'll draw their attention away by you time. Are you crazy? Jake shot back, panic rising like bile in his throat. You can't just put yourself in danger. But Mike's expression was firm, one that made Jake realize he was willing to sacrifice himself for them. Do it, Mike urged. Trust me, I can handle this. Fear twisted Jake's gut as he locked eyes with Sarah. We have to go. Follow me, Ava shouted, darting out through the back door, motioning for them to follow. Jake barely had time to think as he grabbed Mia and bolted behind her. With each step, the weight of 100 questions pressed down on him. What was happening? Why now? He glanced back one more time, searching Mike's gaze. You better be okay, he muttered. They rushed out into the night, adrenaline fueling their movements. The chill in the air felt sharper, revitalizing and terrifying at once. As they stumbled under the cover of shadows, Jake felt the heavy thuds of urgency ringing in his ears. He had once thought he was ready to face whatever awaited him, but the truth began sinking in like a lead ball. He might have to deal with enemies he could not see, and those enemies wouldn't be satisfied until they got what they wanted. Suddenly, a blaring siren pierced through the night, bouncing off the walls of surrounding houses. Fear mixed with exhilaration as they were thrust into the chaos of it all. Run, Ava shouted, her voice cutting through the panic. They dashed down the alley, hearts pounding. Where would they go? Would they find safety? Or was this just the beginning of a wild chase with no clear path ahead? And just then, Jake's phone buzzed in his pocket, an unrecognized number flashing across the screen. He had the sinking feeling he wouldn't like what it had to say. Should I answer it? He wondered, knowing the risk could mean exposing them to disaster. Would this call lead them back to safety or deeper into danger? Jake's heart raced as he stared at his phone, the screen glowing ominously in the darkness. The sirens echoed in the distance, each wail a reminder that time was running out. He could feel the weight of Sarah's hand gripping his tightly. Mia nestled protectively against him, her small body trembling. Jake, we have to keep moving, Ava urged, her voice strained. The urgency in her tone pulled him from his thoughts. Slowly, he turned the phone over in his hand. What if this was a trap? What if it was someone connected to whatever had pulled Ava back into his life? Someone determined to take everything away again. But what if it was a lifeline? He could feel Sarah's anxious gaze, urging him to act quickly. I'll just check it, he decided out loud, his voice barely above a whisper. With trembling fingers, he swiped to answer. Hello, he breathed, trying to mask the fear in his voice. Jake? The voice was low, almost a whisper, but it sent a shiver down his spine. Is that really you? Who is this? Jake demanded, glancing over his shoulder, half expecting danger to loom from the shadows. It's Ryan. We thought we lost you. The familiarity of the name hit him like a punch to the gut. Ryan, his old friend, one of the few left who knew the truth about what really happened to him. What do you mean? Jake felt a knot forming in his stomach. Look, there's no time to explain. I've been working to clear your name. They thought you were dead, declared it for 2 years, Jake. But it's not over. I have information that can help you. They're coming for you. You need to trust me. Jake's brain was firing on all cylinders. Declare dead? The shock was almost too much. He turned to Ava and Sarah, the depth of what Ryan was saying crashing down like a wave. What was he talking about? He asked, but they were listening just as closely. In the background, he could hear footsteps approaching, sharp and hurried. His heart dropped. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to protect his family. I can't talk now, he replied briskly, but I'll reach out as soon as I can. Jake, wait. Just know he hung up, nerves frayed. We have to move. They're coming. Ava led the way down the alley, ducking into the shadows as they ran. Jake followed closely, holding Mia tight against him. His mind raced. 2 years gone, and for what? What did it mean that he had been presumed dead? The questions buzzed like angry bees, and all he could do was keep running. They turned a corner and stumbled into a small park. Jake's breath hitched as they paused momentarily, trying to catch their breath, the weight of their situation wrapping tighter around him. The moonlight cut through the trees, illuminating Ava's worried face. Jake, we can't stay here, she insisted. We have to figure out our next move. There are too many unknowns. What unknowns? He demanded, the edge in his voice startling even himself. I don't even know why this is happening. I thought my past was buried. Your past is what they want, Ava said, her voice steadier now. You matter more than you know, and they won't stop until they get what they want from you. Jake's thoughts spiraled. Everything was unraveling, and now urgency teamed with confusion. He felt the fleeting grip of safety slipping away, like grains of sand between his fingers. There was no clear path ahead. Then, in the stillness of the park, he heard the sound distant engines revving, headlights sweeping across the trees. We need to go. Now, Jake shouted, pulling Mia closer, adrenaline surging like fire through his veins. Every instinct screamed that the night was far from over. Jake, Ava pulled him back, her eyes wide with intensity. Before we go any further, you need to know something that changes everything. His breath caught. Was this what they had been running from? Would the truth finally unveil the past he thought he had lost forever? Jake felt his heart race, pounding against his chest like a caged animal desperate for freedom. Just as the weight of uncertainty loomed over them, Ava's words set off an unsettling chorus in his mind. What could she possibly say that would change everything? His gaze flickered toward the flickering headlights that glided in their direction, each moment sizzling with urgency. Ava, now's not the time. He hissed, his voice threaded with fear. We need to move before they find us. Listen to me, Ava insisted, her hands clasped in front of her, a fierce determination igniting her eyes. You've been cozying up with ghosts of your past, but there are real people, dangerous people who believe you're tied to something bigger than you can even fathom. They think you know where their money went, Jake. And I'll bet they're not going to take kindly to a dead man walking. The world tilted on its axis, sending Jake stumbling. What do you mean? Money? I didn't know anything. His words came out desperate, confusion mixing with panic as icy tendrils pulled tightly around him. The memories of those long nights dreaming of family and security began to fade into shadows. Everything he thought he understood shattered as Ava's voice broke through the noise. Jake, the case you were wrapped up in their things, dangerous people, and the money, it went missing right before they pulled you under. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about something much deeper. Then what do? He pressed, fighting against despair. The sound of racing engines began to get closer, their presence igniting a primal instinct to fight or flee. Right now we go, Ava said. But we have to stick to the shadows. We can't let them see us. Find a way to get to the old cabin in the woods. It'll give us time to plan. Old cabin? Sarah murmured, her brow knitted with worry. Yes, it's tucked away. We can regroup and figure out our next steps without prying eyes. But we need to act fast. Mia clung tighter to Jake. Her innocence an unbearable weight he and T realized he could still feel, his heart somersaulting in his chest. "Mommy, I'm scared." Sarah dropped to her knees, framing Mia's small face in her hands. "It's going to be okay, sweetie. Daddy is still here with us, and we're going to be all right," she promised, even as her own fear quivered like a candle flame. "It's time to go," Jake urged, wrapping his arm tightly around his family, providing the only semblance of calm he could muster. "Let us stick together, no matter what." With renewed purpose, they slipped through the trees into the underbrush, the shadows swallowing them whole. Every crackle of a twig beneath their feet sent jolts of adrenaline through Jake as he led the way, keeping a heightened sense of awareness, his instincts tense and alert. He could hear the distant hum of the cars approaching closer, fear creeping in like a thief in the night. They hurried deeper into the woods, pushing through thick branches and underbrush. The old cabin loomed in the distance, just ahead, shrouded in mystery and memories of long-forgotten summers. Dust hung in the air like ghosts of what once was, silent and stuck in time. "Is it safe?" Sarah whispered, casting glances over her shoulder. "There's no turning back now," Jake said, his voice lining the edges of certainty as they stepped into the dark structure. It smelled of aged wood and lost memories. Jake could feel the weight of history resting on his shoulders, the burden of choices he never thought he'd have to make, swarming with chaos. "What now?" "We secure the door, stay quiet, and wait for the lights to pass," Ava instructed, her tone leaving no room for argument. They settled in, hearts racing, the stillness enveloping them like a heavy blanket. Mia nestled close to her mother, seeking comfort in the warmth she had felt abandoned without. Jake's thoughts buzzed, a whirlwind of fear and determination, but there was no time to spiral. As the sounds of the engines passed overhead, Jake's mind raced with options. Ava's revelations clawed at his conscience. Could he truly navigate this tangled web of danger without risking his family again? Every fiber of him longed for the normalcy they had lost, and he vowed he would do anything to retrieve it. The sirens faded into the night, slipping further away, finally giving them the momentary illusion of safety they so desperately needed. Taking a breath, Jake turned to Sarah. "We'll figure it out. I won't let anything hurt you or Mia. No more shadows. This time, we face them together." A spark of determination ignited in Sarah's eyes. "Together," she echoed. Her voice steadied, weaving them closer once more. Outside, whispers hung on the wind, the unknown threatening to reveal itself at the first sign of weakness. But Jake knew they were stronger than the darkness, the truth now a guiding light. They would find a way out of this nightmare, come hell or high water. As the night deepened around them, the hope shattered like glass but shone like a star through the cracks. Jake took a deep breath and prepared for the long road ahead, challenging their circumstances until they could heal their family once and for all. And in that weightless moment, hope soared, and the future fractured open like a sunrise, ready for them to embrace it. But first, they had to defeat the shadows still lurking in the corners of their past. If you felt this journey deep in your heart, if you felt the hope swell like a flame, now is the time to join us. Do not wait another moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel. You need to be part of our upcoming adventures. Hit that like button now to help boost our reach and keep the stories flowing. I want to hear your thoughts, so comment below. Tell us how you felt about this transformation. And don't forget to share this with at least 5 friends who need to feel this inspiration. This is the moment to show your support. Every connection matters, so don't wait not even one more second.